Hey, Jeff from DBS here. Part 2 of the El Presidente build. That's right, we're putting in the rear suspension this time. We're going to install the cross member braces, the forelink, and the rear end. So stay tuned and enjoy the show. So first off, we're going to start with our main bracket on the cross member, and we're going to show you how to line it up on the bottom of the car. We don't center it off the driveline tunnel. We actually center it off the two provisions on the right and the left for the vehicle. We'll be cutting out most of the tranny tunnel to allow for the drive shaft to follow through. We're simply going to make a mark for the drive shaft tunnel that's going to be going into it. That way we can mark the side brackets that will actually bolt to that plate and bolt to the side frame rail. So now we're going to use the brackets, line them up, again mark the other side. Sometimes a car will have a gap on the bracket. Once you tighten down, it should snug up pretty firm. If it's too much of a gap, you may want to use a washer or a shim before bolting in. As you see now, we just use a die grinder and cut out the trans tunnel. This does have many layers into it, so it's a little fun to get out of there. So take your time and cut the inner structure and the outer structure. It'll remove the bump stop mop at the same time. Now we're inside the car. It actually shows you where the hole's coming through. We're gonna go ahead and cut this out, kind of give you a rough idea how much floor and tunnel you're gonna have to do and cutting out you're gonna have to do. Basically, to the front of the back seat will have to be trimmed. You can do some provisions to your seat to allow the drive shaft tunnel to go through and still keep your rear stock seat. Now that we have the tranny tunnel cleaned up, we'll do a little grinding and prep for the welding that we will have to do. Build a template and shear it out, roll it, and tack it back in. Now we'll fast forward to installing the two side brackets, right and left, which will bolt to the frame rail. Mark, drill your holes. Now we'll set the upper bracket in and use supplied bolts to mount to the cross member. Once those are started, you can snug them up, and then you'll see the locations for other bolt holes that you'll have to drill, and these will go all the way through to the back seat. Drill holes to start tightening the bolts. Make sure you put supplied washers on the inside where the back seat goes. We have a larger fender washer that we make that we send with the kit to keep the bolt from pulling through the sheet metal. And there you have it, our front cross member is installed.
Next, we're going to show you how the C-notch goes in. Basically, we line up everything off of the factory hole as shown here. We will take a quick template of the C-notch, like so, and then we'll line that up using the factory hole. The C-notch only needs to be about 1 inch to 1.5 inches. Here you'll see us marking it, get ready to cut out the C-section. Pretty simple, self-explanatory. Grab our little death wheel and do a little modifying. There will be inner structure here too, so you'll have to cut through several layers. This is where the old bump stout mount used to go. We'll clean it up and slide the notch in. Then it's ready for drilling. This is a notch for a 64 to 69. If you have a 61 to 63, the process will be very similar, but the notch will be a different shape. Again, it still bolts all in the same. Inside of the wheel well, you're going to have a factory indent, so you'll drill through that, and then we'll supply a spacer that goes in there, keep it from crushing. Then repeat on the passenger side. Now we're going to be using a flat bit on a air chisel, and what that will do is imperfection on the inside of the car that will need to be flattened out to get the notch to go on. So we just use a flat bit on the air chisel and just give it a little hammering. Now we're going to move on to the front 4-link mounts. We'll do the driver's side first. Make sure that your triangle is facing the farthest point down as it can go. Install your air fitting and your bag is ready to go in the mount. As you'll see, we point the rear fitting towards the rear. It cannot go forward to get the airline out of there. Use 2 3/8 supply bolts. Again, we're putting this kit in before we coat the bottom of the vehicle, so everything's bare metal. We're not using Loctite in the video, but when we're finished and we're putting this in for the final time, we Loctite everything, locknut everything, lock washer everything. Now the lower 4-link bar is super simple. You just drop in the bolts. The bag plate on the bar is adjustable, so if you have a 61 to 63, you will be 1 inch farther forward, and if you have a 64 to 69, it'll be 1 inch farther back. And those are adjustable by 2 Allen head bolts on the 4-link bar. And then upper 4-link bars go in, and we set this all up before we even put the rear end back in the car. This car here, we're using an aftermarket 9-inch Ford that we manufacture. However, if you're using the stock rear end, it'll probably still be in the way, so you'll have to work around it. We're showing you here what has to be trimmed back for the pumpkin to clear when it lays out. This is a cross brace that holds the gas tank straps above the rear end. We'll do a little trimming on it and get it out of the way for clearancing. You can cap the ends in, or you can leave them open. That should give you enough clearance for the top of your rear end. Not all cars need the floor cut out of them. Some of them you don't have to worry about this step. For this video and this vehicle, since the size wheels and tires he's going on is going to need the extra clearance, we marked it and trimmed a hole in the bottom of the floor. Again, we're just repeating the process on the passenger side. The front hanger mount for the front 4-link bar, getting everything prepped to go in. At this point, we are ready to set up our lower link mounts and our upper link mounts. We'll put all the tabs on all the links. That way it's easy for us to locate and install. Once the rear end is in place, then we measure the rear end front to back, right to left, to make sure that everything is square, and then we adjust the pinion angle at ride height. And ride height is usually about 3 to 4 inches from laid out. This kit is designed to drive low and ride low. We get the lower links at 0, which is ride height, and then we adjust the pinion angle on the rear end to match the 3 degrees. We actually put the degree wheel on the back of the rear end on this vehicle to measure the degrees of the rear end. And then we'll actually cycle the rear end before we even weld anything 100% to make sure everything is centered, the rear end lines up at the notch, and that you're centered right to left. All your measurements should be same from one side to the other, and everything should be directly straight in line. Again, here it is tacked in, and now we're working for the upper link bars. We want to basically draw an imaginary line from the 2 tabs on the front cross member to the rear end. You want to make the upper link bars as triangulated as possible. That will keep the right to left movement to a minimum. Again, we'll tack everything in. Yours should look something like this. We will now cycle to make sure the rear end clearances and clears everything. The upper bars are fully adjustable, and they're right and left hand, so they're easy to tune. Loosen the jam nuts and spin the bar. That'll get you that desired exact centered. When you're collapsed, you should have about 2 inches collapsed. That's what these bags run. And one more cycle test to make sure everything looks good. And this is ready for welding.
Well, there it is, part 2. The rear end's installed. So now we have all the links, the brackets, everything. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for following along. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow. Go be devious.